All right.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the PokeRadar podcast. Hopefully, everyone's doing just fine, staying healthy, staying indoors, staying sane, playing some Animal Crossing, or looking at the Pokemon collection. But I know I haven't been back in a while doing my weekly thing, but today we have another great guest that is, I think, one of the more behind the scenes pillars of the Pokemon community. He's been doing this for, um, gosh, probably close to 10 years. Back into the collection,
Close,
back into the
close.
collecting
Eight
community.
years, I want to
8
say.
years?
About eight, 9, somewhere in that range.
Wow, wow. So
Yeah.
yeah, another early adopter that we get to kind of talk with today. At least that's kind of the time frame that I consider early adopters. We have Jason SilverSnorlax. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We and I've been doing this podcast for a little bit now, and someone started a thread on E4, with the whole coronavirus thing, wanting to hear stories from people, and I figured I'd try to do some more with it since I've taken some time off. But so
It's a
I'm
good time to do it, for
happy to have
sure.
you.
Happy to be here.
Good, good. Yeah. So, um, yeah, we can just kind of let's hop into we were just talking before we started here, kind of how we've met, or I guess crossed paths. um, we yeah, we first maybe shook hands. I don't think we spent too much time together at Worlds in Washington D.C. last
DC
year.
Worlds. Yeah. So, that was definitely the case. I was all over the place. Like you said, I do more kind of the behind the scenes kind of aspect of anything we do with E4. I'm not staff on E4 by any means, but I like to help, and that's always kind of been my thing. So this past year, we got a room over at, and I'm going to forget the name of the hotel we stayed at, but essentially we got a party room or a club room, and there were a good. I think the body count was something like 50 people. It was way more than I thought it would be. But we all got together and just put a bunch of collectors in one room, and I mean, it was a really good time. Um, Tons of smiles everywhere. So I was the guy behind setting up that room, and Charlie Herlocker was actually our financial backer on that one in case things fell through.
Hmm.
We actually crowdfunded it, but Charlie was going to be the anchor in case like we couldn't come up with funds. He would take care of the rest of it, and I did some bookkeeping on that when it was all said and done, and we did really well. We were something like by the time it was all said and done, we were something like $8.12 short, which I very very passionately picked up myself. So
Well, thank you.
um, yeah, so I'm happy to put in the $8 and the oh my god, I spent days trying to get that room together and getting it all figured out, but it was well worth it and something I hope we do in the future. But future is uncertain at this time. Where gosh, there's a lot of talk about like, is there going to be a Worlds this year in London, and we just don't know. So the
Right,
world's crazy right
right,
now.
and
Hopefully, we can look back at the podcast and go, you know what, wasn't as bad as we thought, but that's only a hope.
right, right. And I mean, honestly, even at this point, I'm uncomfortable going to London in August, even if they keep the date. Um, just with the spread of this virus and the severity of it, I don't want to pick it up and be in a foreign country and
Right.
have to deal with it. So that's something that
Yeah.
I'm strongly
So
considering, and just not even thinking about it anymore, and canceling my trip. So it's
yeah, it's a bummer. It's a huge
yeah.
bummer, but I mean, it's a reality I think we have to face. So I was going to bring my girlfriend this year,
Mm,
take her out of the country. We've never been out of the country before, and we're looking forward to it. And just a couple days ago, she was like, "I don't know if I want to go." So I was like, "All
right.
right,
Yeah, and it was it,
well,
it, it would have been my first Euro trip, and obviously everyone
right."
that able to do that, you can set some time to go to France, go to. I
Mhm.
was thinking about Italy, even they're struggling very hard right now, and even go to Ireland, or some other places in the UK. So it's unfortunate, but I'm sure the time will come around again, where we'll get that opportunity.
We'll get the opportunity for sure. Hopefully, when this whole thing dies down, hell, we can even do things ourselves if we really really wanted to.
Right.
That's always an option. Hell, I'm Pittsburgh based. We can all come to Pittsburgh, and I'll find a shanty hotel somewhere, and we'll all hang out.
Yeah, and
Something can happen.
that could be the beauty of this. That's something that I've talked about before in the past. Of you know, Comic Con and these huge events like this were started by fans originally,
Right.
and they slowly built up over time to these huge events today. And you hear people complaining about why doesn't Pokemon do this or that for collectors and this and that,
Mm.
because it's not their job to. It's our job to. Um, so yeah, if it comes to that and we're able to set something up and start having it grow, that would be phenomenal.
Right. We're already in the early phases of that. I seem to, I don't know what it is with my kind of track record here, but I always seem to be on the early cusp of whatever we're doing, and then somebody takes it and does it way better than I do. Um, Barney Luckens and grading, for example, is a prime example. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of room and opportunity to grow in this kind of, I don't know, fan made zone that we're kind of in right now. So hopefully we do more with it, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I know I got your YouTube pulled up here, just having some stuff in the background. You're opening up the top Series 3 box with Rusty TCA Gaming at the collector convention in Hartford,
Hartford.
Connecticut. Which,
Yes, that was so much fun.
right, obviously a lot of mixed feelings to most of the people that know that are listening, but I think it was. I wish I could have gone. I think it was great that you guys set that up, and I mean, obviously the headaches you
Yeah.
had to go through setting it up, and then the stuff afterwards. But we need more stuff like this, and um, I was very jealous, of course, of the Super Smash Bros. Setup that you had in the back. That's always
You
a
like
fun
my
time.
GameCube? I bring it every time we do any of these. I always bring my GameCube. I'm always the guys that brings the GameCube. We just play Melee, and like that's it. That's just it.
Yeah, that's honestly what I mean, I knew your name beforehand, but at Worlds it was,
Hmm.
where do we play Super Smash Melee? Oh, it's in Silver Snorlax's room. So I was like, all right, got to go
Yes,
there.
I'm the guy. I'm always the guy who has Smash set up, and I love it. I'm not that great, but it's just one of those games that just like for whatever reason brings people together, and just the trash talking and the camaraderie is unparalleled to anything else
Yeah,
that I see at those events. So a lot of fun.
yeah, nothing like it. But let's dive in a little bit to your backstory here. I mean,
Okay.
again, you said you started roughly 8 years ago, which to me, I'm probably almost 5 years in, maybe four. I
Yeah.
lost track, but 8 years is a great time to have gotten back into the Pokemon. Obviously financially and just availability back then of what you could buy and what you could do with the stuff you buy. Um, so what was your story, kind of getting back into the hobby? I mean, 8 years ago, we're looking at like 2012. So were you just getting out of college? Were you what stage of life were you at?
So when I started 8, 9 years ago, that would have been probably 2011, I want to say. So I got done with school, and I was like, I have no idea what I want to do right now in life, like most people do when they get out of college. I had a liberal arts degree, which is totally useless. So I went to go and start. I started working at a company called Giant Eagle, which is a grocery store chain that is popular here in the Pittsburgh region. That we also have stores out in West Virginia, Maryland, Ohio. We're starting to move out into India a little bit too. But started work for them, and they were like, "Can you wash some dishes?" And I was like, "I got two hands, sure." So I started washing dishes for this company, and while I was doing that, I was also working on a horse farm where I was mucking stalls, and was working like 60 hours a week, like straight labor, and still living at home with mom and dad, and had my girlfriend. I think she was still in school at the time. She's actually older than I am, but she transferred, so I think she was still in school at the time. So I was making money and didn't have rent or car payment or anything like that. And I just kind of hopped on YouTube one day and was like, you know what? Let's like relive childhood a little bit,
Hmm.
and started seeing all this stuff pop up with like Pokemon cards and openings and stuff. And I was like, that's kind of fun. It reminds me of, when I was 9 or 10 years old. If you really want to go back all the way, I started like when I was 9 years old, like most of us did. And
Hmm.
I've
With
been on podcasts before with like Zach, Gem, and Pokemon. We've discussed this. Like everybody seems to go through this hiatus phase, especially when they're kids going into their teenage years, and girls start to become more attractive to you, and you're like, you know what, I need to drop the kid stuff so I can maybe focus on that. I'm still not popular with women, so that's just a thing. But no, got back into it a little bit. Started watching YouTube videos. Started my own YouTube channel. Started with pack openings and stuff like that. Just like really basic stuff. Stuff everybody was doing at the time.
hmm
is where I just kind of started. And, the first video I uploaded is like just me goofing around and just like having fun with it, which is what the hobby should be. But like super immature, just like I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no direction. And but it was fun.
It was raw.
Um,
It was real.
it was real. It was, filmed with a potato that, filmed at 144p and, just that's how it was. So I was playing around with that a little bit and getting more into it. And because I had extra income, I was able to buy like, stuff you find at like, Wally World or Target or whatever. And kept watching and kept kind of getting engrossed into YouTube a little bit. And then like one day I found this like really weird video. It was these Pokemon cards from my childhood. It was like the base set or whatever. And it might have been Dan Clover's video. That would have been PokePix. There was another channel back in the day. It was like CA Redwoods or something like that. That didn't have any audio to it, but it was like video of these cards that were in these like really unique slabs, and they had serial numbers and grades as far as to like how good they were. And there was something about that level of perfection, that standard, that hey, look, you can get not just a card, but you can get a card in the most premium condition, that I really started to kind of fall in love with. And I was kind of like, that's what I want. I didn't realize that was something maybe I wanted to do
Hmm.
in terms of grading, but I looked at it and said, that's something I really, really like. So at the time, there was nothing on YouTube about graded Pokemon cards. Like it just didn't exist. There was maybe 5, 10 videos. So that's what I
Hmm.
looked at. But that wasn't a thing. Most people didn't even know you could grade Pokemon cards. So I, I had to do some research on it and eventually found, yes, they will in fact grade Pokemon cards, and had to teach myself from the bottom up because there weren't, there you could find sports card people who were like, here's how you send a PSA, but it didn't translate to Pokemon in the right sense. So I had to kind of like learn that system myself and said, all right, maybe I can send in a couple myself. So I sent in some of my childhood cards and said, whatever grade they get, that's fine. Didn't expect, immaculate grades, but my old, base Charizard came back with a 6, and I was ecstatic about it. I was like, all right, man, that's cool. It's preserved forever, and I don't care what grade is on it. I remember pulling it as a kid in the mall and just like jumping up and down over it. So,
Was it unlimited?
um,
I'm guessing.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
No,
unlimited.
no Shadowless or first edition back in the day for you. At least base set.
Oh no, I couldn't make it. I do have another story about that though. Maybe another time or a little bit later. But no, it was unlimited. But like I had a Charizard, like
Right.
period. I had a Charizard, and that was I gained access to a club I hadn't been in previously. So I went from the super nerdy kid to the just nerdy kid, and that was pretty exciting for me.
That's awesome.
So,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. So back in the day, you started with base set, obviously. Um,
Mm.
were you aware of Shadowless and first edition cards, or was it just not a thing you noticed or thought of?
So I wasn't fully aware. And especially looking back now, there's just so much information out there about it now that just didn't exist back then. Or there was a lot of misinformation or a lot of misunderstanding about these cards. There still is today.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of what I started to realize is there's a first edition set and an unlimited set. The first edition set is always worth way more. So that's why I started to focus more of my attention on. I went through my old collections and stuff that have been in storage for God knows how many years, and kind of sorted through it. All cars are just trash because, I mean, you're a kid and that's what you did.
Hmm.
You didn't exactly treat them like they were show cars, because why would you? So, see if I had anything. And I really didn't have anything. So then it became, all right, now I need to purchase this stuff. And again, I was in a world where I'm working 60 hours, and, going up to visit my girlfriend was maybe a $20 round trip. So that wasn't expensive to do. So I was starting to pump a little bit of money into cards, and starting to find first edition and first edition graded, and started to do after a couple years actually, especially after I had started to do grading for other people. I had started to get into buying first edition based cards, and decided I really kind of want to chase the whole set, which I'm still chasing. So it's definitely been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a long, expensive process to do so. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I could see on your Instagram a few photos of them. You're getting pretty close. I mean, are you missing the Charizard?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and I can't tell you how many times I've now kicked myself because I've had chances to buy it from back in the day, especially when I did grading for people. I would kind of be the first one to get the cards back, and before I sent it back, I had the option to buy from the individuals if they wanted to.
Right.
Um, and back then I got a couple PSA 10 Zards that came through me, and they were asking like 4 to 5 thousand each, and I didn't have that kind of money
Hmm.
at the time, but I was like, boy, I would love to buy it, but that's too expensive, and now it's not even close. Like gonna have to mortgage my house in order to afford a Zard at this point. So,
Right. Right. Yeah,
but
it's a tough
picked up
one.
several of the hollows. Yeah, picked up several of the hollows when they were just a couple $100 a piece. Zach, Jim at Pokemon sold several of them to me. I think 3 or 4. I own 10 of the hollows currently. Um, 10 or 11. I want to say it's 10. And Zach sold a good 3, 4 of them to me for like 300 to 400 bucks each. And now he just, especially last time we were at Worlds, he looked at me, he's like, that one was mine, that one was mine, that one was mine. And they're all worth like 10 times that now. And
Right.
everybody's kind of kicking themselves a little bit, but like, who knew the market was going to spike like that? I
Oh,
would have told you that's ridiculous, that'll never happen, but here we are.
right. No, I was saying that, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. you know,
Right.
I,
This isn't going to happen. This is ridiculous. This
I
isn't going to happen. And then it happened.
I remember the first time I had a first edition base set Charizard. It was a PSA 8.
Mm.
I had done a trade, and it was really early in the Pokemon with me, and it was a $1,100 card, $1,200 card, and to me it was like, like I can't hold on to this. I need to sell this. This is $1,200. I can't just have this lying around my house. Like, am I crazy? So I ended up selling
Right.
it right away, and then I think 3 weeks later, it was almost worth 3 grand. Like the market just,
Yep.
yeah, incredible, incredible.
Yeah, it
So
just explodes.
yeah, I mean, it's that's something everyone will always say about honestly anything of what it could have, should have. Um, but it's just being able to document it at least and remember that experience of owning one or going having some go through your hands, like you said, you know
Oh, yeah.
kind of, I guess you kind of personally graded them, um, is
Yeah.
pretty awesome. So
Yeah. A handful that are on the market came through me first. And pleased that when I used to do grading, pleased I got to see so many unique and interesting cards. I think that was probably the best part out of all of it is I just got to see unique stuff that I would have, it's one thing to look at it online and go, look, that's a first edition Charizard. It's another thing to hold it.
right,
So
yeah,
it's kind of like, I don't know, I kind of compare it to like a poker chip almost. Like it's got that weight to it, it's got that feel to it, and it's a different experience completely, I think.
yeah. It's got that validity. It's got, yeah. It's just, yeah. It's cool.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got
absolutely.
to hold. I got to see Gary's one of his pristine Charizards when I was in Dallas, for the Fukuda signature or signing, and yeah, that was incredible. I mean, that was just something that I was able to compare to his other PSA 10s that he brought, and yeah, it was
Hmm.
just it was such a nicer copy. It was beautiful. It was
Right.
almost perfect. So, but yeah, so going back into Pokemon, I mean, I was scrolling through your YouTube at the very bottom. I think you kind of looked like you were opening Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Was that the era that you jumped back into when you got
Yeah.
back into Pokemon?
Hmm. So that was, yeah, and that probably would have been 2011, 2012, somewhere in that range. And it was just, there was no focus. As an early collector, I had zero focus. It was just, let's collect whatever. It wasn't, let's collect all the primes, let's collect all the reprints, let's collect, not even let's collect the set. It was, let's just get cards. And that can be deadly for anybody out there watching who, is a collector trying to get back into it. Um, Such a just but it was just so much more simple and just fun to do, and I didn't have to think about it, and that
Right.
that
So you were doing modern
that was the enjoyment.
and vintage at the same time. Was
Started
Heart
getting to vintage a little bit later.
okay? Yeah, I mean, and that's something that, I mean, that's what got me started was evolution. So I was buying modern product at normal retail prices, and it was more accessible to do that and get back into that collecting mindset. And then yeah, once you get into the vintage, you want to have a you want to have a goal in mind. You want to educate yourself and be
You
sure
want
you're
an
doing it
empire once you start doing the older stuff.
right. So it's dangerous, like you said, but can be
Mhm.
very beneficial if you do it the right way.
Yes. So that was me getting back into it. Was definitely some of the older stuff, but I mean it was fun. And now looking back, I'm like, all right, I need to have a focus, otherwise this becomes very stressful for me because I don't know what I have and what I need or what I want to have, and just coming in and having that precision and that not laser focus but more focus is I think pretty key for new collectors coming back into it.
Right. So once you got that focus, once you kind of started collecting and building up all this, I guess bulk or whatever it was, what was
Mhm.
the first thing you set your eye on?
So, the first thing I started to look at and really wanted to do was probably first edition base. And at the time, that was semi affordable.
Now,
It was
and
still,
sorry to cut. Was that PSA graded, or were you just going for a
yes,
binder
PSA
set?
graded.
Okay.
I wasn't even going to mess with like trying to find random lots online and spending that time. I wasn't going to chase that way. And I knew it. I knew it was going to be not only a time suck, which I didn't have, but it was just going to be a financial investment I just really didn't want to do. So buying them graded and buying them correctly, you can go on eBay, even today and find, PSA 10 Nidoking for like $5,000 to $7,000. Wasn't going to pay that kind of price point, so I hit auctions, um, and I actually recorded. It's like on my little PSA account. You can, put down how much you paid for it, and then it gives you the current worth or whatever. And like every hollow I picked up was picked up at auction or picked up as a very like low or current market value bin that I picked up, and that was the only way I could collect them because they were more affordable. They were three, four, $500 at the time, and I don't even think I spent $500 on one of them. Um, so that's how I started to collect, and then I started to get into the auctions for like the commons and the uncommons, which were 20, 30, $40. As a guy washing dishes and mucking stalls, I could afford that, so that's what I did.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's um, what I went for was a similar thing, but I was just going for a binder set because that's. It took me a while to get comfortable and understand the grading side of things, and it seemed like you picked that up pretty fast, and it just caught your eye from a collecting standpoint. I still don't have that mindset with PSA. I only see PSA as dollar signs. Um, my collecting lies in the binder collections.
I mean, the nice thing about Pokemon is not only are there like many different ways to like play it, like the TCG, the online version of the video game. There are multiple ways to collect too, and none of
Right.
them are wrong. You can collect however you want. It's up to personal preference. Doing a master set on something versus just trying to collect one of the older Wizards of the Coast sets or whatever. Just kind of whatever fulfills you or your collecting needs or wants. Varies person to person, but it's that sense of completing, I think, that we're all after ultimately, whether it be a binder collection or you're doing a master set of the biggest card set that came out ever. The sense of fulfillment, I think, is the same, but that's what we're all after.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what's great about it. We're all able to go after different things or the same things, and it's competitive, it's friendly, it's there's so much going on, and um, it's been so much fun to be a part of. I mean, when did you stumble upon E4?
I kind of lost you on audio there. Could you
Oh,
repeat that?
yeah, yeah. When did you stumble upon E4?
So E4, I stumbled upon E4. One of the guys I was grading for, I think his name was Jason as well, and he was Canadian. And I had been doing several. He had a lot of like high end cards, but I think his username there was something like ABC 123 or something like that.
Hmm.
And back then it was like UPCCC pro boards. It wasn't even E4 yet. And he's like, you should like come to this and like check this out. So I do what I usually do, and I just kind of lurked in the background. I'm never a forefront kind of guy. I always kind of sit back and read and kind of see what's going on. And these people on these forums were talking about this thing called trophy cards and like how many thousands of dollars they were and these people spending just massive amounts of money, and I was like, this is crazy. I cannot be at this level. This isn't real. These people are nuts. So I lurked a couple times, but I didn't make an account or anything like that. I just kind of lurked and kind of checked off and on throughout the years, but they were in a tier so far above me with stuff I did not understand that I was kind of like, I'm out. But I'll check occasionally. It was only in the last, I want to say 3 to 4 years. Might have been, might have been 2 or 3. Can't remember exactly, that I actually made an account, jumped on, and went, "Hey, I'm SilverSnorlax from YouTube." A lot of you may know me from uh, the grading I used to do for people online, and was kind of came back that way. And surprisingly, a lot of people did remember me. I had taken a hiatus from YouTube and grading in general, probably for 6 months to a year, if not longer, at that point, and came back, and open arms. Happy to see me, happy to be there, happy to be a part of the forums, um, and just kind of went right back into it. My focus is these days not so much collecting, because I still don't make great money or anything like that. But I still enjoy the hobby. I just find different ways to enjoy it. So a lot of what I do now is some very basic consulting with like trading card preservation, and learning about, like, how card stock reacts to, like, humidity, UV light, all kinds of different things in order to continue to preserve. The aspect of continuing to preserve and have that perfection on a card from the start has always been something that has interested me. So I'm just continuing to do that. I'm just doing it in a different format, something nobody else is really doing right now.
Right, and you're testing like PSA cases and their strengths and weaknesses,
Hmm.
and doing all different types of stuff, which is
Oh
really
yeah.
interesting.
Matter of fact, I'm sitting in my office right now, and I've got a little shelf kind of right above me. I know you guys can't see me, I'm on camera, but I've got like these little cubbies in the desk I work with, and there are like slabs that have just been melted, slabs that have been destroyed by the sun, slabs that have been boiled, slabs that, I mean, just like everything, like all kinds of torture testing, just to see what happens. And I mean, to me, it's interesting. The job I have now, I've since graduated from washing dishes and mucking stalls. I actually work kind of in the sciences. I work for our corporate office now, no longer on the ground floor, but I do a lot with food science, and work with a lot of really great people who've been excellent resources. I got a couple girls I work with are Ivy Leaguers. They're very smart. They can tell you anything you want to about food or nutrition or regulatory compliance. And some of that science I've actually been able to transfer over into the world of Pokemon cards.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah, you wouldn't think it, but what breaks down food: oxygen, moisture, light, aka energy, heat. Um, Making those molecules move a little bit faster. Okay, what breaks down cardstock? Um, Increased energy, moisture. The same thing. So it can be transferred. It's just an odd transfer to make. So I've been using some of their knowledge and some of my research to kind of continue to see what we can do to preserve those cards. So that's a large part of what I do now.
What's been the most, I guess, interesting test for you?
Probably by far, and the one that has been most requested on forums, is the UV light testing. So I'm going to go off on a tangent on
Please
this
do.
one. Um, so I haven't published these results yet, mostly because I've been incredibly lazy. But what I have found with cards, and especially with a lot of the market right now in terms of selling you anything protective, does stress UV protection, which is true. There are tons of examples that I can show you from various industries where UV light was in fact damaging to a product or a material. That's proven, or at least there in the sciences, there's evidence to support. Um, proof is in its own world. That's more mathematics. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off. But essentially, what I've looked at is I've done UV light testing, and I've done lux testing. Lux is the measurement of light, like from like a, trying to think, like a light bulb, not necessarily like wattage, but the lux amount, which is a measurement of light, how bright something is, and how much lux your card can take, and if that causes it to fade versus just UV light. So I've done both testing with the sun, and I've done testing with light sources that do not produce UV light. Specifically, I used like a grow light or something like that that didn't produce on the UV spectrum, but produced lux. So I ran a couple of UV meters through it, and it fell within tolerance, and did all my research and found everything was good. Completed both experiments, both a UV light and non UV light, and found that in both cases, um, exposure, especially prolonged exposure, would in fact cause fading, regardless of UV rays being present or not. So it's not necessarily, in the world of Pokemon, not necessarily UV light that is damaging your cards. It is light, period, that is damaging your cards.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, it's um, you know, I don't know too much about all that, and you always see the everyone talking about museum quality plastics or UV protected museum quality stuff. So it's pretty cool to see all that testing be done with Pokemon cards. I mean, I think um, a lot of people obviously want to display their stuff, and even simply putting it up in your house. Whether you have, I know we were talking to one guy who just bought a fossil uncut sheet, and he's worried about fading and putting it on the wrong wall in his house
Mhm.
that's by a window and all that. So I know he went through the lengths to get UV um, protected glass and all that. Um,
Mhm.
but there's still that conversation. So that's interesting to find out. I mean, I don't know how intense the light you're using is and how long it's sitting on there for, but um, that's pretty interesting to know.
The To be fair, I used during my controlled light experiment, I used a lux amount that I would have to go back and measure it with a lux meter. I have a lux meter to measure it, but I believe it was something like 18 inches out, and at that measurement, it was something like 2,000 lux, which is pretty high. Um, but from the information I've looked up and researched over the past couple years about it, there are kind of sweet spots as far as to what you should use in terms of lighting. And that's usually between 30 and 50 lux. It's very, very light, very, very dim by comparison. Um, and of course, you can just do a simple Google search. What is the average lux level or lumen level in your house? And it's usually like 100 or 150. I forget the exact number. Again, Google it. But yeah, it's a much less vibrant, much less bright source of light that can't be shown directly on the card surface, but is considered optimal in terms of displaying. So, again, a lot of research I did was based off of like what museums and stuff kind of use, and
Hmm.
looking at what conservationists use for that kind of stuff, and that seems to be the sweet spot. I believe the same principles can be applied to Pokemon cards, or for that matter, any card stock, whether you're a sports card collector or not. So there are ways to do that correctly that you can still display safely, and that's kind of where my research has kind of taken me as of late. Is just what can I do with this? So
Yeah, that's cool because I'm kind of falling in the same space where um, I mean outside of what's happening now, where the market is starting to exceed my budgetary limits, and I'm not
yeah.
able to buy the same things that I used to buy, and um, I'm not able to open all the packs that I want to open and do all the things I want to do. So I'm trying to rediscover myself what I can do to keep this hobby exciting and fun for me. I mean, that's
Right.
probably part of why I started doing this podcast and why I try to be more involved with like Discord and stuff like that because the card side of things is has been getting out of hand with the pricing. It's crazy.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I mean, I'm a sealed collector. If I collect anything, I know I sell a lot, but I love the open packs. That's where my passion lies, and it's so tough to do that now.
Yes.
I mean, is that something that I mean? Obviously, you said you started with that. Were you buying Watsy boxes ever and opening those, or was it always more so the modern stuff that you were ripping open?
So for me, I think the excitement from opening stuff also has to do with my financial limitations. Um, Modern product, I think, is fun to open. Watsy stuff, also fun to open. But is it worth, 2 grand, 3 grand to open that? For me, no, the experience does not override the financial limitations. Like, a 3 grand box is like 10% of what I make in a year. So, like, that's not really feasible for me.
Hmm.
Um, the most expensive thing I ever opened was that box with Rusty. That was an $800 box. And I have no idea if that was a good price or not. Bought it from a guy and was just like, I'm going to open it because I already have the first two sets and I want to complete a binder collection. That's the first binder collection I ever completed was Top Series 1, 2, and 3. And it was just determined to finish it. So I said, you know what, I'll open it. Rusty gave me a couple bucks to open it with him. He got some views on YouTube. I got some views on YouTube. But I tell you what, it was like the funnest thing I've ever done in terms of opening product. I don't think I will ever open another high end or expensive pack or box unless I am with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was
Period.
just gonna say that experience it's special.
Yes, it's unparalleled to anything else. Yeah, I can sit here. You could give me a first edition base booster box, and I could open it in my office where I'm sitting currently, and that would be a lot of fun. It would be super cool. But like once that's over, that's it, and I'm out. $80,000 or whatever the box costs these days.
Right.
If I open the same $80,000 box or whatever it costs these days, and I do it with a group of people from E4, people at Worlds, people, friends, that experience is worth 10 times as much,
Mm-hmm.
without question. In my mind, that's where it's at, because you get the reactions of the people around you, you get the support of the people around you, you get people who jump up and cheer. Your body shakes when you've pulled that first edition Zard. It's just it, and everybody around you is feeling it with you, and it just builds off of each other.
Yeah, and I know that feeling quite well. But yeah, I mean,
Yes, yes.
I before that, a month or so, I opened up my very first heavy first edition base set pack by myself in my
Yes, I saw
apartment.
it.
Pulled a nine
Yes.
tails.
Hmm.
I was happy to do it. It was great to finally experience that. But like you said, I'm not looking back. I mean, sure, maybe the Charizard supersedes everything, but I'm not looking back at that one, and no one's bringing it up. It's not a story to like tell because no one was there to experience it. It was
Right.
just me with my camera on my desk opening a pack, just like any other pack, But doing that
Mm.
other opening, thankfully, yeah, there was the best case scenario Charizard Venusaur pull with me and Swolpoke.
Hmm.
But I think regardless of what we opened with the people there and the cameras going and just that experience is something we would always go back and reminisce on. So
Oh yeah.
that's something that is more valuable than the Charizard that we have. And
You will get chills going back to watch it. That's the difference, especially because people were there and you can still kind of feel that energy. It's awesome.
yeah. So I highly recommend that. We highly recommend that if you're ever opening something, even if it's cheap, get someone with you, do it together.
Right.
Obviously, not right now. Social distancing is very important.
Yes, right now, but in the future when this goes away, and it will go away. But yeah, definitely. I've reached out to a couple people before. Um, Dan, DJ Gigabyte, actually has a box of, I think it's like Mewtwo Strikes Back tops or something.
Yep.
And I don't think he's opened it yet, but he offered to open it with me, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. I've done tops before, so
Those are actually
um,
awesome. I opened up
worth it.
a few of the smaller, the like 10 or 11 pack boxes, not the 36 pack box. I opened those
Yeah,
like
yeah,
last month, and it's a great set. It's a lot of fun to open.
it is. That's the
Yeah.
thing about it. And back when I was doing tops like series 1 and 2, the boxes were like cheap. They were like 90 to $100, and they were freaking 15, 20 years old. And I was like, this is cool. They weren't cool when I was a kid, because it's like these aren't real Pokemon cards. This is garbage. So I've had to have a change of heart on it. But yeah, now these are cool. They were part of the vintage era, part of the legacy a little bit. Um, yeah, they're just cool. It is a fun set to open. That's the big thing. They are a fun set to open.
Yeah, and everything's basically the same rarity. So trying to pull that foil version of whatever you want is super tough. So it's a different challenge collecting those sets, especially if you're a completionist. Trying to get both the foils and the
Oh my God,
non-foils.
Master Set.
Yeah,
Master Set's like impossible with that with
yeah.
those, especially in like mint condition. That those cards are so old.
Oh my god, yeah. The box I'm still got the video up. The box you guys were opening. I remember watching it the first time and how stuck they were. And
Oh my
I
God,
think that
terrible.
the Tauros that Rusty pulled had like a huge crack in it
Oh
from
yeah,
on the foiling. So it's
yeah. But it is what it is. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
right. But
You're not.
that's it leaves some authenticity on it. That age on it with that crack.
Right.
So
If you
I
ever
like it.
watch Yeah, you ever watch like those wax pack openings for like sports cards and stuff? They still got like the gum in them from like 1970 or whatever. They're just stuck to the card. It's like, ah, that's authentic.
Yep, yep. That's super nice. But
Yeah.
touching on the, might as well touch on the coronavirus here, COVID-19. What are your thoughts moving forward with the Pokemon market? I mean, obviously we've seen a huge hit in the stock world. Um, it's only a matter of time, in my eyes, that it starts to affect Pokemon. What do you think?
So I actually just had this conversation not long ago. I called my brother. I needed some. And my brother's an attorney. I needed some legal advice for something totally separate, but that was something that we touched upon very briefly. And here's kind of what I'm thinking we'll see. The big guys with heavy duty stock, like your SM Pratt, your Scotts, your Garys, your E Birdman, whoever, people who have done this for a living for much longer than I have, are going to be in the game. They're not. They'll feel it. They'll feel a loss in a revenue stream, but they're not going to be crushed. Um, the guys on top usually stay on top regardless. That's true with a lot of different aspects of the economy. The multi-billionaire investors are they'll feel it. They'll lose a couple million in stocks or whatever they're invested in. But the guy who's working for him at the bottom is going to get destroyed, which I think is what we're going to see a parallel with Pokemon. Your average low tier flipper, your mid tier flipper, suddenly his demand is gone. What drives the economy? Supply and demand. So that demand has diminished considerably, or at least it will over the coming months. And when we see that, we'll see kind of that flipper category go away. Not go away entirely, but it'll be diminished. You'll start to
Right,
see you'll start to see people just trying to get rid of stock. You'll see decent prices come up. You'll see people just trying to liquidate assets, and a lot. That's good if you want to buy that stuff. The problem is with people losing their jobs and people who are on hiatus at least for a little while, can they afford it? I don't know. So you're just going to see a constant drop in terms of both the demand and the price point. But essentially, that bottom third, bottom half, I don't know. I don't know if there's a percentage I could really accurately stick to that. You're going to see that kind of evaporate and go away. But some of your higher mid tier guys and your guys with lots of inventory, they're going to be around. So the high tier stuff, the PSA 10 Charizard isn't gonna suddenly become $50 and everybody's trying to liquidate it. It's gonna
right.
stay at 50 grand or whatever it's at these days.
I'm
Um,
curious to see
but
if some
you're
if one or two pop out that drop towards the $30,000 mark. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those go down slowly if someone has to sell. I mean, obviously, most of these guys that have them are going to keep them and not sell them. But there's
right.
there's bound to be a couple people out there with one that will need the cash. Um,
So
so,
you'll get a big win somewhere in there. I'm sure you will.
hmm
That does happen at least occasionally. But as far as to what that is and who needs it now and who has the money for it, who has
right,
cash on hand to do it, good question.
right. Like those big shops that are out there, they're not going to spend the time going through their eBay, lowering all the prices to match what's happening. They're going to leave them as is and just wait because they can. Um, I am curious to see some of the bigger items some of those guys have if they mess with the price at all and try to sell. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting time, like you said. I mean, I actually personally I dumped maybe about 20% of my collection in the past 2 months just in preparation for something. I wanted to have cash on hand for either
Right.
to throw in the stock market or have ready for to buy more Pokemon if the opportunity comes up. Because I'm in that, or I'd probably consider myself in that mid tier range. So I just wanted to be safe and ready for something for that opportunity. Um,
Right.
but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we're already seeing some higher end items come up for sale. I mean, some more trophies, whether they're lower tier, mid tier, whatever they are. Starting to see more boxes pop up now, sealed product,
Yes.
because there's been a drought for that for a long time. Um, But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with Pokemon because it's like it's the people on the lower totem pole of those corporate jobs, those jobs out there. Like you said, they're going to be the most affected, and they're typically the ones buying Pokemon cards. So um,
Right.
it'll be a tough time, I think, for a lot of people.
It
Hopefully,
will be.
people get through it, and I think it's best to hold on as as much as possible. Hold on to what you love because you might not get it back if you sell it. Um,
Right. That's a big part of it too.
yeah, and it's a different experience this time around. I think compared to the last. I mean, I wasn't really old enough during the '08 housing crash, but once things clear up, we get a vaccine, we get things moving along. I think there will be a pretty quick rebound from the financial sector, and obviously that'll affect Pokemon and everything else that's been or doomed to go down, I guess.
Right. There will be a bounce back. That first of all, that's just kind of how the market works. It does go up and down. That's not, that's nothing new by any means. And this living through a pandemic is it feels like I'm living through a sci-fi movie. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this virus is not it's not killing everything it comes into contact with. The kill rates are pretty low. My own age bracket, I have like a 0.2% chance of dying. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't lose sleep over that by any means, and I actually am currently working with the public. 40 plus hours a week trying to get food out to people. Because again, I still work in my corporate job, but we've been moved to grocery stores to help because it's just crazy out there right now. I can't tell you how many times people have asked me for toilet paper and bread. But no, we'll get back on track once the panic kind of dies down. Once people get what they need, once we stay at home and stop going to grocery stores, we're going to be much better for it. We'll get through it and we'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so looking forward to that. That we're all coming together, obviously, to help go through these tough times. But once we come out of it, it'll be a nice scene all around. But you got any nice stories for us? I know this was kind of the what brought us to this was possibly a story you wanted to share. Do you have a specific one in mind that you want to discuss, or did we kind of hit hit on them?
I mean, we hit several, and I've got all kinds of stories from all my years of doing this grading. We touched on it. Part of where I am in the community currently is because I was one of the first people to do grading for other people back in the day, and that was published up on YouTube, and that kind of started to snowball us. Actually, I would say I was one of the first people to start kind of snowballing us towards that. And I've got all kinds of great grading stories and people I've met along the way. And then Barney came in and he does grading now and he does it so much better than I do. But that's a good story that I would really love to talk about one day. Just the success of Barney. We were actually talking on Facebook not long ago. He's like, I just took your system and just ran with it. I'm like, dude, you put in so many more hours than I ever would have.
And Barney
um,
runs Ludkins.
yes, Barney
Right. Yeah.
Lepkin's grading service. He like literally 6 months after I started grading for people, he saw where the opportunities were, and he started to. We actually were partnered together for a while there. I would send him all my UK contacts because I didn't want to ship out there, and just kind of he kind of took over, and he was able to pump all kinds of time and money into it. Whereas I was the opposite. I was actually at that phase of my life, I was working grocery retail, managing a department, and was like working like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. In some cases, holiday weeks or bad weeks, it was 90 plus, and just did not have the time to add an extra 10 or 20 hours of grading to it, and eventually had to stop. And I was completely overwhelmed. I was getting anxiety and panic attacks and all kinds of other stuff due to that. But Barney took it and just freaking ran with it. And my God, he's built an empire and he's done such a good job. That is one of the to me, that is a success story unparalleled to anything else. But for me, I would say the best story I have actually really doesn't have anything to do with collecting, but it's Pokemon related. So if you want to hear
Ab-
that story, I'll be happy to give it to you.
Absolutely.
So, 2000, maybe six, five. I'm not sure the exact date. Little backstory. I have a younger brother. My brother and I we have an unusual relationship in the sense that we are about 5 years apart, 4 and 3/4, I think is the exact amount. I don't have a younger brother who is 1 or 2 years behind me, where it's a lot of people do. So coming up, there was sibling rivalry where, like, I'm 13 and he's 8, and it didn't mix well. Um, Obviously, you always have that sibling rivalry regardless. So there was always, just kind of being not bad, but not being great to each other all the time because like that's your brother and that's just kind of how it was. Um, but in 2005 or six or whatever, a Pokemon tournament came up, Journey Across America. This was during Generation 3 of the video game series.
Hmm.
So we heard about it and kind of looked at it and said, my brother in particular, I had kind of gotten moved away from Pokemon at that stage, but my brother was like into it. So he was like, I want to go and compete. And there's something coming to Pittsburgh where I can go and compete. And I was like, all right, whatever. And started like very passively start to read up on it, more the in-game mechanics and understanding that. And it was very in depth, and I definitely didn't understand all of it. I was like, what is an effort value? What is an individual value? Things were just so different back then. But essentially, um, it was a tournament where my brother wanted to go and compete, so I helped him build a team, and we had like a cheating device or something like that. And I built my own team using the cheating device to play against his legitimate team, and just destroyed him every time. It was like, all right. And granted, there were no like modified stats that I had like 999 or whatever. It was all legitimate stats. It was just different Pokemon. So I played against him and tried to use a system that he was comfortable with, and I was like, "You're gonna get destroyed if you go to this, but that's fine. We'll go to it." So we went out to the old Century 3 Mall, which I don't believe is standing anymore, or isn't open to the public, one of the two. And it was a tournament run by Pokemon. It was called Journey Across America. It wasn't even called VGC or VGC Championships or anything back then. It was like the first video game tournament, and it was super poorly run. It was no focus. There were a lot of things wrong, but Pokemon was learning what they needed to do. So my brother was playing in the 12 and under division. I was in high school. He was, I think, exactly 12 at that point, so I would have been about 16, 17, somewhere in there. Um, so I was rooting for him. Kind of hadn't realized it, but at the time when we were building his team, we were really kind of starting to bond a lot. And rather than having that sibling rivalry just like tear us apart, we had a common goal, and that was to win a tournament. So working with him, building this team, and then he went on to go and play. And his first match, I stood back and watched. You're not allowed to coach at those things, so I could stand back and watch as the tournament unfolded. And I watched him win his first match against like a kid who was like 5 years old and had no business being there, but he just wanted to play. So he just decimated this poor kid, and then he went on to the next match, and he almost lost second round. He was very close. The guy did not play well at all. He had like a Swampert that could have beaten his team, but wasn't aware that he should have like continued to like not use special moves against a Kyogre. So because it was Uber tier back then, you were allowed to use Ubers. It was like so if you could use all Ubers, it wasn't a restricted format like it is today. Anyway, so I watched him, and he was winning constantly and using kind of the same strategy over and over. He used a Kyogre and Ludicolo lead set and would use an Annoyer strategy where he would leech seed and toxic the opponent's team and then wear them down slowly while Kyogre kind of fired off some powerful moves. For a 12-year-old, that's a great strategy.
Yeah.
For me, who had very limited knowledge of the game, that was also a great strategy. But he was winning with it, and I was like, "This is working." So he goes all. He beat, I don't know how many kids that day, but he must have beaten eight eight or nine. I forget how many participants they allowed. It was like 128 or 64, one of the two. It was fairly large. So he makes it all the way to finals, right? And Pokemon Company gets involved at that point, and they're like, okay, we have to like run through your team, run through your specifications, we have to like check everything. Checks it, passes this check, goes on to play against, I think, one of only two girls in the entire tournament. Mostly men in the tournament, kind of like today.
Hmm.
So I was like, don't play dumb with her. I said everybody has looked at this young lady today and said she's a girl. I can beat her, and now she's in the finals. It was kind of my advice. It was kind of his coaching before the match kind of deal. And I was like, you have to play smart. You have to maybe play a little more defensively. So he jumped on board with it, and I remember he got a couple leech seeds off early, and then just started to annoy it with his Ludicolo. The thing about his team is nobody could bring down the Ludicolo. They thought it was like a Swift Swim user, and it wasn't. It was a Rain Dish user combined with Kyogre. So he would heal with a combination of Leech Seed, either one or two Leech Seed setups, followed by Rain Dish, and he was holding leftovers. So he was regaining like between a third and one fourth and one third of his health every turn. And he would combine that with Protect, so they couldn't break through it. So it was great to watch. It was kind of a slow burning game, but he beat this young lady, and she's super good sport about it. She's like, nobody's ever beaten my Mewtwo before. The kind of conversations that 12-year-olds have, and just super good. And he won the tournament, and kind of sat there after the fact stunned. I mean, my mother was there. We went out and we ate after. We're like, oh my god! And Pokemon had approached and said, okay, you've won your Pittsburgh regional. We're going to fly you up to New York City. You're going to compete against all the other regional winners. Um, you know, Big deal, especially when you're 12.
Oh yeah.
And I just talking with him so excitedly, once he had won, and sitting down to lunch or dinner or whatever it was at that point, just talking about he had a medal. He was like just wearing it around the mall because like why not, right? You gotta put your bling on when you're 12 and strut your stuff a little bit. Um, but I believe more so than anything that summer that followed, because we had months before the New York tournament. Um, that's where our sibling rivalry died, and that's really where we became much closer. Pokemon is this thing that kind of brought us together, kind of killed that sibling rivalry, because it gave us a common goal, and really that was the kind of a turning point, like in life. And Pokemon just so happened to be a bridge and be a part. We didn't fare so well in New York, unfortunately. He actually ended up losing first round to Hacks Money, the melee player.
All right.
Right. Let's
He went against Hacks in New York. Didn't fare so well.
Did not fare well. Lost first round. He just outplayed him. He played with a better strategy. And the thing about the tournament was that Pokemon actually posted all of the winning teams, so you could see who you were playing against. I had a whole binder on every person who was going to be at the tournament, and I was like going to look them up and like let them know here's what he used to win his regional or her regional, and here's kind of the strategy we can adapt. We were going in hard with a game plan, but was not meant to be. Hacks ended up taking second place overall in that tournament, as a wild card, and I mean, kudos to him. I'm sure my brother would still kill for a rematch, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's gosh, how many years later? 15 years later. So, um, but yeah, no, but you know what? We shed some tears together. We got through it. We still enjoyed it. We ended up getting uh, participating in the festivities. It was out in Bryant Park in New York. It was outside, so kind of an outside worlds, and it was fun. They had all kinds of goofy stuff set up, and big special event Pokemon, which we recently just moved over to Pokemon Home, and we're like, oh my god, these Pokemon are like literally 50. It's kind of cool, that save file on your cartridge, and have it be real and authentic. Anybody can create a fake now, but like we know they're authentic, so they're cool. But yeah, just that I would say that's probably my biggest Pokemon story is the day the rivalry died. Just kind of and my brother and I are pretty close now, so it's been a ride for sure. And Pokemon was a bridge in that, and kind of helped enhance and make my life a little bit better through a game. And for me, that's just that's something I can't really compare to anything else in my life, and I'm sure it's that way for at least a couple other people as well.
That's pretty awesome. That's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely, the whole card collecting has brought me a lot closer with one of my brothers. So that's been pretty great. Did uh did your brother get anything? He won that from that first tournament.
Yeah, he did actually. They gave him something like $500. Again, this was like the first tournament where like the prize pool like really wasn't that great compared to what it is now.
Right.
But I think they gave him like $500 like um, money, and then I think they gave him like some kind of like voucher to like spend in New York as well. I forget what that amount was. It was like an extra $200 for meals or something. Paid for him to stay at the Millennium Hotel. The whole family got to stay at the Millennium Hotel down in New York, close to like Times Square and all that other stuff. A very centralized location. He got a whole bunch of like little presents and stuff from like the Pokemon Center setup that they had there. We went to the Pokemon Center, as a matter of fact, which was not far from Bryant Park. If I remember right, it might have been just a quick cab ride. So like, yeah, he got some stuff. He got some cash prize. He got like a little mini Game Boy he could play. I think he still has it somewhere. It was like a collector's edition or something goofy. So I mean,
Hmm.
like overall, he made out pretty well. And cash and prizes, he probably made at that time probably $700 worth of stuff for being a 12-year-old kid with a Luddy Colo. So that went really well for him.
That's pretty awesome. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Mhm.
He was on his way to becoming a real Pokemon trainer.
Yes, exactly. Of course, he after that he we tried to continue to play competitively, and the following year they didn't have a tournament at all, which sucked. And then I think in 2008 they were using like a lottery system in order to determine who could get in and play, and it was just a horribly broken system. They still really didn't know what they were doing. So he went to another tournament and I think he finished like top 32 or something like that. And at that point in time, I think he was like 14, maybe 15, and still playing, but um, play. He did in his life. He decided he would focus more on schoolwork, whereas I didn't. I continued to play the Pokemon, and I'm not a good Pokemon player at all. So I play VGC online, like Pokemon Showdown and stuff, and I just enjoy it for what it is. I'm not a good player even remotely. I'm not anywhere near as smart as he is. My brother focused on school and now has 3 degrees and is an attorney and more student debt than he knows what to do with, but at least he has those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's doing well in life, but we still circle back around to Pokemon frequently, especially during the pandemic. I was like, I'm going to throw together a spreadsheet and we can just make Pokemon that are like can be viable for competitive uses. So we just have them on hand, so we can just grab them, throw them into a team if we want to. So
That's pretty cool.
that's an option.
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's a pretty great story. I mean, I think it's nice to have. There's so much that Pokemon can entail, and just outside of the cards and all that relationship building, that story with ending that family feud, and not so
right.
much feud, just the rivalry
Rivalry. Yeah.
is great. It's amazing what a kid's game can do and what it's done
Right.
for so many people. So, um, but yeah, we're coming up on an hour here. So I just want to say thank you again for your time today. Thank you for being out on the front lines as well with helping people get their
So
food and their groceries and all that. That's a very
absolutely, I will
admirable
continue
thing
to
to
do
do.
that. It's important.
So stay healthy, stay safe, keep drinking the vitamin C drinks, wash your hands, and keep the Pokemon alive. Do
Absolutely.
everything you can, and I'm actually excited today. I'm going to be opening up a first edition Gym Heroes booster box today, so that'll
Nice,
be.
nice. I know I own. I know I have a sealed box myself. I can't get to it because everything's closed, but I have one myself. It's a great box, great set.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite sets. I need to open something while we're all quarantined and sitting here doing nothing, so it'll be fun. But thanks again. Make sure you guys follow Jason SilverSnorlax on Instagram and check out some of his YouTube videos as well. SilverSnorlax 204. Yep, that's right.
Got it.
204. Boom. All
Right.
right. Well, thanks again. Thanks again for all the stuff you do behind the scenes as well, helping us set up these cool events with E4, and hopefully we'll cross paths again here soon once things cool down and um, if we figure out worlds or not, and, and yeah.
we'll take it a day at a time, but absolutely, you'll see more of me. I love going to the in-person events. Anybody out there who's watching, if you can come and find me, come up, talk to me. I love talking and meeting people, so that's a part of the experience for me.
And bring him some packs to open up with him, because that's always fun.
Absolutely, we'll do it together. We'll have a great time.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. And
All right.
thank you guys for watching. Have a great time.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.